unstructured this time. It's been giving me a bit of grief, but there we go. Oh crap, it is Arena. Alright, so welcome back everyone to game number 2 in this best of 5 series between Chirpas and Goodstah. We're sitting pretty in Group 3 in the second round of Division B for the Australian Open. Now what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is we have the home map, or the map pick of Goodstah, since he was the one who unfortunately lost in the previous game, and he has chosen, much to my dismay, Arena. And this is going to be quite interesting. I think not because of the map at all, but because of the but because of the civilization. So I'm saying that let's not jump the gun. Let's see what's going to be going on here. Let's introduce the players. So down to the south of the map, playing in the blue, is Goodstah, the man himself, and he has chosen the Mayans today to play for his Arena pick. Obviously, a very, very strong Arena civilization. Now, what interests me, we'll come to this in a wee bit, what interests me is Chirpas playing in the red, and he has chosen the Japanese as his civilization of choice. And this is going to be quite interesting because I do believe that there was in Masters of Arena 4, I think, if Robo's in the chat, that would be fantastic, but I'm sure there was a Japanese Mayan pick for one of his games. I can't remember who he was playing, but I swear to God there was a Japanese Mayan pick, and Japanese just managed to absolutely trawl through the Mayans. But anyway, we'll get to that in a wee bit. We'll have a look at the map for Chirpas to begin with. So where is his main goal? Well, his main goal is out on the front. Definitely going to be harassable, pardon me, by any castle drops or anything that comes in on this sort of area here. Whereas the rest of his goals, well, his other 2 goals are sitting in a wee backyard that he has sitting here at the back of his base. He also has a stone at the, in a pretty defensible, nice, safe location for him. And his last stone is out on the front of his base. So all in all, not a terrible map for him. He does have quite a nice area to boom back into at the back of his base if he gets pressured off of the front. It was against Avicii. Yeah, it definitely was, right? It was, yeah, Robo and Avicii. And I'm pretty sure the Japanese had a pretty nice advantage over the Mayans as well, which surprised me. I would have thought the Mayans would have been able to do better, but I guess the Japanese just managing to just to be too super strong in the end. And here we can see out on the front, we have a bit of laming coming in from Chirp. He's going to go ahead and he's going to kill the sheep of his opponent here, who should just return the favor. Good. Pyro's probably going to get a little bit salty up in here as he sees that there was a sheep murder. It was caught on stream. It's definitely something that happened, so no one can say otherwise. Of course, now Goodstah is going to be able to go ahead and start chasing down the scout of Chirp to be able to start taking it down. So anyway, let's have a look at the Mayan player. Let's have a look at his map. He has his main gold in a crappy location, and his second gold also in a crappy location outside of his walls. One of the stones outside of his walls, really unfortunate for a Mayan player. You want to have that stone income, you want to get those plumed archers out, and you want to have a lot of castles to do it. Mayan's definitely favoured in this matchup. That's what I thought too, but I'm sure, maybe it was a skill difference thing, but when Robo and Avicii played, I'm sure the Japanese player had the better it was maybe just a skill difference, but I'm sure when Avicii played with the Japs, he absolutely destroyed Robo. But again, that might have just been a skill difference thing. Anyway, the Mayan player also, Goodstah has his other stone out here to the left-hand side of his base. Also pretty exposed, pretty unfortunate for him. Does have anything in the back of his base, but he's got a couple of idle villagers, not nice for him, and he does have one of his one of his extra golds, so at least he's going to have something to fall back on if this area of his economy gets pushed back too much. Now, of course, what strategies are we going to be seeing here? Well, based on the fact that Goodstah is the Mayans, I'm thinking that maybe it's going to be looking like he might want to go for a castle drop. And of course, a castle drop out on this area of his economy is going to be super strong, considering he does have a good chunk of his resources out here that he needs to try and secure as well, or else he's going to be in a really tough spot. Chirpas, on the other hand, his resources still kind of lend himself to being able to just sit back and boom and try and out-eco his opponent. But of course, we could see a castle drop, we could see a forward castle coming up in this area here of Goodstah's economy, where he wants to try and start pressuring his opponent. But of course, time will show what these two guys really want to do. And in the meantime, we'll have a look at the relic placements, because relics very, very important on arena matchups. Now there is one here just outside of Goodstah's walls. You can see that now as I click on it incessantly, that is going to be pretty much his for the taking. Whereas the rest of the relics, I suppose you could argue that this one may be a little bit closer to Chirp, but of course they all seem, the rest of them, you know, the other two sort of, at least these two sort of seem evenly distributed with respect to these two relative to Goodstah. So not really too many or too much of an advantage here for either player in terms of these two relics out here for the very least, but this one here definitely going to be under Goodstah's control. Now Chirp having clicked up to the feudal age now on 22 villages. So he's going up on 23 population. This is going to be huge. He's thrown up a barracks. Is he looking to do something funky? Is he looking to try and change? Is he looking to try and sort this game out nice and early? It's going to be interesting to see. What are these? These guys here are shepherds. He's moving them out, and we saw as well that Goodstah was moving out pretty early and going for a barracks out on the front of his, well out on the front of the map, pretty much in the center of the map actually, as we can see some villagers now coming forward for Chirp, and Goodstah keeping his Eagle Warrior nice and active, keeping his scout nice and buzzing around, is going to spot these 5 villagers coming forward from Chirp, and Chirp of course looking like he was maybe wanting to go for a bit of a tower hop. Now that makes this barracks even more impressive and even more fortuitous as well, because Chirpus, not Chirpus, Goodstah might be able to get some military out to try and put a stop to this this forward that we're seeing Chirp do at the moment. And of course, Goodstah now having got his, now having managed to sneak his Eagle Warrior inside the base of Chirp, is going to be able to get some scouting information as to what Chirp is actually planning on doing. And saying that Chirp is up to the feudal age now. Let's have a look. Is he placing a tower down? No, he's not placing a tower down anywhere. Villagers coming forward. We'll have to keep a very, very close eye on what these cheeky beaky buggers are doing, as we can see some. Is that militia? What the hell's coming out of there? Yeah, some militia coming out for a Mayan player. Goodstah here. He clicks up to the feudal age now. He's gone up on 28 population, and we can see a forward archery range coming in now as well for Chirp. So this could be quite interesting. There's no way he can get into his opponent's base to do any damage with these archers. And sure, you know, map control is all well and good, but if your opponent's going to go ahead and grab the castle age, you're still going to be able to push out with mangonels and all that sort of stuff as well, meaning that these this archery range here is going to be somewhat useless. Instead, Chirp going for a bit of a tower. He's going for a bit of a trush, which is a bit cheeky of him. A wee bit of a trush. Not exactly what you'd expect to see on an arena map, but of course the militia now coming out from Goodstah, managing to battle away and beat away this forward pressure, this forward aggression from his opponent. One archer now coming out from Chirp as he manages to pick off one of the militia from his opponent here. It looks like Goodstah might be able to pick off a villager. Indeed, Goodstah manages to pick off a villager. The villagers from Chirp now falling idle. One more archer going down as well. A scout, a village. No, was this a villager? I have no idea what's going on, but Chirp has lost 4 units. So I think that was 2 villagers, a scout and an archer. And now finally, the drush, I guess if you could call it that, has been cleaned up as well. New meta is very, you know, you're not wrong. It is a little bit interesting. Chirp calling it damn it because his opponent got to the feudal age or something happened. I don't know, but either way, Goodstah is not able to get up to the castle age. He throws up an archery range in quote unquote defense as more militia comes spewing. Well, one militia comes spewing out of this barracks out on the front, and unfortunately falling prey to the towers, or to the tower and the archery ranges of his opponent as well. Chirp now moving out to take this forward stone of his Mayan opponent. Unfortunately, this villager here is actually walled out from his base, and a villager inside of Chirpus' base finally taking down the Eagle Scout, as the archers from Chirp start moving around his opponent's walls and managing to pick off another villager, making the villager count 27 to 29 in favor of Goodstah here. Second archery range from the blue player coming up now as well to complement his forward barracks, which is still creating militia. Get man at arms, mate. Just do something else. The militia are not going to stand up to a tower. They're not going to stand up to archers, which do actually have fletching, I want to point out. Fletching has been done for Chirp as well. 27 villagers to 31. Goodstah finally in the lead with villagers. I believe he was behind pretty much all the time in the last game. Putting up a watchtower is Goodstah inside of his economy, inside of his walls, looking to try and push his opponent off the forward stone. Does he know he's taking it? Well, of course he does. Looking to try and push his opponent's villagers off this stone mine here, getting out some defensive skirmishes of his, or not of his own, but getting out some defensive skirmishes to see what to sort of put an end to any to all this funky business with the archers, this funky business with the forward villagers as well, and of course with the skirmishers sitting underneath this watchtower and the militia managing to batter upon it from at the base of it. And it's Drush versus Drush on Arena indeed. The bonus damage that these militia get against buildings means this tower is going to be going down very quickly. And Chirp, not really sure what his game plan at the start of the game here was, but it's not working out as effectively as he would have liked, I am sure. Some skirmishes now coming out from Chirp as well. Remember, these guys do have fletching, whereas fletching has not been done for the blue player here from Goodstah, meaning that as well as padded archer armor not having been done under fire of a watchtower, under fire of some skirmishes off from his opponent, the skirmishes here from Goodstah are going to get taken down quite quickly indeed. And just like that, Chirp managing to hang on, not seceding, not giving up, not withholding, not withdrawing from the aggression at the front of Goodstah's base. But of course, Goodstah is not really under any pressure at all, but this could be detrimental. A tower hop coming in on the walls, and as I turn the fog of war off, then we know exactly what Goodstah can see, and we know that Goodstah can see that there is a tower hop incoming. All he has to do is just come over here and wall up, just a block of palisade, a house, just something to stop Chirpus being able to get in here. Of course, one might make the argument that, hey, Chirp's got some units here, he'll be able to stop any walls coming up behind here, but that's only if Chirpus is actually paying attention. Goodstah moving out to the left-hand side of his base to start taking more stone. Of course, he doesn't have any more stone to put up another defensive watchtower. And Pyro asking, what is this game in the chat? I genuinely have no idea what's going on. What I do know is that the fletching archers and the padded archer armored archers and skirmishers are now moving into the base of Goodstah, and he's going to be able to start putting the pressure on his opponent's economy, at least some parts of it. Of course, there's a watchtower here guarding the main gold. There is a town centre, obviously, but unfortunately for Goodstah, his wood, his lumberjack, his lumberjacks and his wood operation is a little bit exposed, and as we can see now, Chirp managing to potentially get some villagers across this gap and get his villagers into the economy of his opponent, and this could be absolutely huge, putting more production buildings, maybe a stable in here would be pretty huge. It would of course set him back in terms of his castle age time, but for the time being, with 300 food compared to 400 food, neither of these players really looking like they're going to be going up to the castle age anytime soon. The villager count now in favor of Chirp, and this is something we've noticed from Goodstah in the previous games that he's played. He's not that great at keeping his villages or his town centre running. Of course, he does have a good amount of stone coming in as well, so he can watchtower up his base should the need require, or should it be required. But for the time being, the skirmishers being pumped out of his one archery range inside of his base and his other archery range outside of his walls, and managing to deter and push away any aggression that his opponent is currently putting into him as well. Do you think these guys had a game plan? I think Chirp wanted to go forward and tower hop into his base, or into Goodstah's base initially, but he got scouted out too early and it all just kind of turned to shit from there. Not really sure, but Chirp back at home, we saw him putting up a market, looking like he wants to buy his way up to the castle age. Market also coming up for Goodstah, wanting to do likewise, buy his way up to the castle age, and both of them are going to be up to the castle age at about the same amount, about the same time, I would say. Unfortunately, that means for Goodstah that he has not had the strongest feudal age here, as it does mean that Chirp is going to be going up with about 5 or 6 extra villages. Did they agree to just end in feudal age? I don't think so, based on the fact their resources are looking pretty bloody high at the moment. An archery range attempting to be thrown down here for Chirp, not really getting up at all. But Goodstah up to the feudal, up to the castle age he goes, and I can only imagine that Chirp is going to be there very, very soon as well. Of course, he does nearly have the resources to be able to click. He just has to buy a little bit more food. And here we go, even more archery ranges coming up on the front from Chirpus as well, who still unfortunately has not clicked up to the castle age rather. And Goodstah is going to be there obviously before his opponent. And will he have enough? Yeah, he's going to have enough stone for a castle as well. So a castle right out on the front here, I can only foresee going to be coming up for Goodstah here, which is going to put a very, very huge stall, a huge stop sign for Chirpas' advancement even further into his base, of course. Have they got out of feudal age yet? Well, no, they have not got out of feudal age yet. Although they're still in the feudal age, but they're advancing up to the castle age, which is all well and good to see. Now, where have those villagers from Chirpas gone? Are they still sitting pretty inside this watchtower? Well, I think they might be, and indeed, there's only one villager left. Obviously, one having been picked off there somewhere along the line from all these skirmishes, this multitude of skirmishes that both of these guys are chucking out on the field at the moment. Now, Goodstah up into the feudal, the castle age. Where's he throwing his castle? Well, right out on the front of his base, which was more or less pretty obvious where he was going to be placing that. How many villages is he going to build it with? That's the big story, because he didn't manage to get his castle up in the previous game because he didn't bring enough villagers over to build it. But it looks like he's bringing about six villagers over here to build it, with only skirmishes coming out from the one archery range that Chirpas manages to have inside of his base. He should be in a fine position to be able to get this castle up in a actually get it up for once, to be able to get that castle up, and Chirpas unfortunately can do nothing, absolutely nothing, to deny it going up either. Of course, this does delay Goodstah's extra town centres a wee bit, as he was focusing a lot of his economy on getting the stone for the castle, but it is at least going to protect the complete front part of his economy here, as he grabs Bodkin Arrow to be able to further push back this aggression that Chirpas is currently chucking into his base. And saying that Chirpas up to the castle edge now as well. What are his plans? Well, he doesn't actually have the resources to be able to throw down an extra town centre. He does have a market, of course, and a shitload of gold, so he can buy the stone and chuck up an extra town centre that way. And indeed, there we go, buying 200 stone, the extra town centre, at least one coming up on the left-hand side of his base at the wood line. And back here, I can only imagine, is where he'll be looking to throw up an extra one, potentially right in that area there. We'll check back in just a moment's time, as we can see that Goodstah's castle has been put up. It has gone up successfully. Archery range from Chirp is getting denied, and as well, like I said, any further aggression coming in from Chirp is going to have to wait until the Imperial Age as well. Now, obviously, Chirp throwing up his extra town centre out here to the right-hand side of his base. So he's going to be up on 3 town centres, and he's going to further pull ahead that villager lead that he currently holds over his opponent. The Elite Skirmisher upgrade even coming in for him as well. Bodkin Arrow having been researched, I believe. Yep, Bodkin Arrow having been researched for him, as well as Goodstah. So it's going to be all even Stevens when it comes to those upgrades as well. I spy with my little eye a drush, and drush indeed. It was more of a defensive drush against the forward trush from the Japanese player Chirpas here, which is quite interesting to see. Not exactly something that we see a lot of the time on Arena, but it has made for quite an interesting opening to the game, which is more than I can say for a lot of other Arena games that I've casted as well. So out here on the right hand side, we finally see a second town centre coming up for Goodstah. Maybe he'll be able to boom himself back into, well, I suppose he's not actually out of this, but maybe he'll be able to catch up in terms of villages to his opponent. Neither of these guys are actually going for relics yet. Neither of them really interested in chucking up a monastery and grabbing those free gold incomes. And as I say that, out here on the right hand side, we actually see Chirp going ahead and throwing down pardon me, going ahead and throwing down his first monastery as well. Scale mail armor actually coming in for Goodstah, unless that was a mistake or a misclick. What are you doing, Goodstah? Are you going for eagles, mate? Oh my god, he's going for eagles. I guess eagles are going to be instead of the standard. Yes. So the eagle's definitely going to be a fantastic counter to these skirmishes. The eagle's also going to be a fantastic counter to any monks that Goodstah sees buzzing around. And Chirp is bringing forward 3 more villages now as well. And this keep bumping up against the Spectre layer. It's really starting to piss me off. Another barracks being thrown up just inside the walls here of Goodstah. If we go over to Chirpas' point of view, what is he actually looking at throwing up? Well, it's going to be a siege workshop. Of course, it's going to be a siege workshop of course. You can't call this game typical Arena, so no problem. No way in hell can you call this game typical Arena. But the siege workshop that's coming up now on the front for Chirpas is going to play right into Goodstah's hands. This chain mail armor starts coming in for him now as well. Obviously, the Eagles are going to be fantastic at taking down any siege that comes out, but I think Goodstah may have overestimated, except for any Scorpions Scorpions, for example, but I think Goodstah may have overextended going into this, as he is losing a good chunk, or pretty much all of his army here, to just elite skirmishers. Of course, Crossbow now coming in for Chirpas as well. Obviously going to be a much more definitive counter against the Eagle Warriors than the skirmishers, but saying that the skirmishers are actually doing pretty darn well decent against the Eagles here. Very cost-effective and cost-efficient trades, as we can see a Scorpion coming out now as well. We saw Chirp going for the Scorpions against the infantry units of his opponent in the last game, and indeed he's going ahead and doing it. He's going ahead and doing it again now. A fourth archery range? Yeah, fourth archery range being thrown up now for Chirp out here on the left-hand side. Of course, there's only 3 left standing because one was inside of Goodstah's base. And Goodstah going ahead and grabbing those plumed archers out, and he's going to send them across the map and see what damage he can do. But of course, he forgets that there's actually a stone wall here that's keeping his opponent nice and safe. So for the time being, it's just going to be a little bit of forward aggression coming in from Chirp. It'll be interesting to see if we see any mangonels coming out and start putting pressure on these walls, and start being able to really punch away into his opponent's economy. What I really want to see is I want to see a couple of petards coming out from Goodstah and busting through the walls of his opponent, and then send in the pardon me, just send in those plumed archers into Chirpas' economy. Chirpas obviously throwing up his defensive couple of archery ranges back at home, such that he can get out some skirmishes to defend against those plumed archers that he saw buzzing around in the center of the map just before. Goodstah thinking, hey, I can't really do too much damage back at his base. Let's come back home and start clearing out these villagers that are building all this crap outside my base. And indeed, he has gone ahead and done that with the help of the Eagle Warriors as well. Alex wants to see Pitardinos going forward and busting down all these forward production buildings, and it would actually be something fun, something fantastic to see. Scorpions getting some nice shots away on these plumed archers, but they will eventually get cleaned up by the Eagle Warriors that Goodstah is now bringing in as well. The plumed archers, as cheap as they are, you don't want to lose them for nothing, so get them the heck out of there. Let the Eagles take the fights against the skirmishers, let the Eagles take the fights against the siege, and then get your blimmin' plumed archers in there to start taking down the crossbows, and that'll be a really nice fight for Goodstah. The only thing that is not looking nice for him is the amount of town centres that he has, which currently is only 2, unfortunately enough for him. His opponent is up on 3 TCs, economy starting to look a little bit bigger, just a little bit nicer than Goodstah's, and indeed the food count is huge at the moment. He's quite heavily on stone as Chirpas, meaning he can either A, sell it to get himself up to the Imperial Age, or come forward, chuck down a forward castle, and further solidify his hold that he holds outside of his opponent's base for the time being anyway. So what else are we seeing? Well, we're seeing Chirpas still sitting pretty on 11 villages in the lead. He has enough stone for a castle. Where is he going to place it? Is he going to go forward with his cheeky villages and build even more cheeky castles like the cheeky little Chirpas cheeky man that he is? Or is he just going to sit at home and not realize that he has enough stone for a castle and just do absolutely nothing with it? We'll have to wait and see what Spectator Dashboard tells us, but for the time being we can see out to the right hand side Goodstah finally throwing up his 3rd town centre battering ram, now coming out as well for Chirpas. Going to be really nice and effective at soaking up this arrow fire from the plumed archers. Unfortunately not going to stand up to too much damage or too much of a battering from these Eagle Warriors, but that of course is why Chirpas has these Scorpions out, as they are going to absolutely destroy these Eagle Warriors as well. But for the time being, Goodstah is actually putting up a nice fight. He's managing to keep Chirpas out of his base, and he's managing to make sure that any army that he produces is, just buying himself a bit of time. Which again, for the time being, is all that he really needs. Now Chirpas building a castle, and he's deciding to place it defensively. Not so sure about that, to be completely honest. I mean, if he did place it forward, he would still be in a good spot. He has enough army, he has enough military forward that he could safely plonk down a castle here, for example, or even out here more on the front. But I suppose he thinks, at least I've got a contingency plan if everything out on the front goes tits up. Indeed, once that castle goes up, in fact, does he have a university or a monastery? He has a monastery, so he can actually click up to the Imperial Age now as well. Go ahead and start getting those cap rams, get those arbalists, get all those all-important upgrades like Caraputo, and then go for those all-powerful, rapidly unpacking trebuchets. So Chirp up to the Imperial Age now with quite a definitive villager lead, quite a definitive military lead, and Goodstah unfortunately lagging a little bit behind in terms of economy, in terms of uptime, and we can see now that Chirp is very, very nearly finding a way into his economy as well. And how many relics does Chirp have now? Well, we can see he's got 4 relics, and now he's bringing in the last one, the greedy, greedy boy. And of course, Goodstah is just going ahead and throwing away his units for the time being. Of course, the eagles being sent in one at a time. I don't care if they're a counter to skirmishes. I don't care if they counter siege. If you throw them in one at a time into the arms, the waiting arms, the loving arms of all of these ranged units here from Chirp, you're going to be up shit creek without a paddle, and you're just going to find yourself throwing away resource after resource after resource. Now, second market being thrown up for Goodstah as well. I mean, they underestimate the power, really, the immense power and the effectiveness of the double market strategy. You want to sell twice the amount of resources, clearly you have to get twice the amount of markets, and Goodstah obviously has been paying attention to those all-important tutorials that you can find absolutely nowhere online, and he has thought, hey, let's get 2 markets up so we can do twice the trading. He is also sending a cheeky wee villager forward to build more barracks. Yep, he's going more barracks, so he's sticking pretty heavily into the pardon me, into the Eagle Warrior line, and that's going to be quite interesting for him because, of course, the Japanese player can just switch into I've completely forgotten what they're called. Switch into Samurai, and that would be fantastic. A fantastic unit to counter the Eagle Warriors. Of course, the Eagle Warriors are only really effective once the Mayan player gets into the Imperial Age, and unfortunately, Goodstah, well, to be fair, he can click. He can click up to the Imperial Age. He just hasn't gone ahead and done it yet. And all relics have been captured. You will lose if they are held for 200 years. That is not something that I was expecting to see at all. I don't actually know what the settings for the tournament are. I didn't realize it was standard victory. I thought it was conquest. I'm sure it was meant to be conquest, so they haven't changed that over, which is a little bit interesting to see. But either way, Bracer and Arbalest coming in now for Chirp, and he has made his way into the Imperial Age. So are we going to be seeing Cap Ram anywhere in the offing? Are we going to be seeing trebuchets coming out? Well, we need to switch over to his point of view to see what's going on that front. We can see a couple of trebs coming out, being sent straight over into the front lines. And like I said, all Chirp really, really needs is to be able to, it should be conquest. I thought it should be conquest as well, not standard victory. Interesting. I feel like the game could potentially be over before it gets to that stage, but here we go. The Eagle Warriors now coming in for what looks to be, I wouldn't say a last-ditch effort actually, since Goodstah is up to the Imperial Age, but Chirp getting a really, really nice positioning on his units, managing to just funnel himself into this choke point, minimizing the surface area that these Eagle Warriors can do any damage against. Scorpions firing behind these Arbalists with Bracer really going to start chewing and melting through these Eagle Warriors. It doesn't really matter how much PS armor these guys have in the Imperial Age or how much PS armor they have at the moment. They have not managed to stand up to too much of a battering from these ranged units of his opponent. The Trebs now coming over as well from Chirp. Do we see anything else interesting going on the map? Well, we can see those forward barracks having been continuously creating, I can only assume, Eagle Warriors out here on the right hand side. But Goodstah's focus, Goodstah's attention should really be on the left hand side of his economy, where all he's seeing now is just a swarm of red entering into his base. We can see still no capped ram coming in for Chirp, and he has the resources to do capped ram and then siege ram as well. Although I don't think the Japs actually get siege ram, do they? From what I can remember, when your walls work against you. Exactly. Well, he could have, of course, just gone ahead and deleted these walls, but we can see another last-ditch effort coming in here as Goodstah sends in a small contingency of Eagle Warriors. Now, is Is Chirp going to be able to start taking these guys down before all the upgrades start coming in for Goodstah? Well, Goodstah not going ahead and grabbing those upgrades for the time being. And of course, this could be really, really dangerous. These skirmishes are going to do absolutely nothing against these Rams. The Rams are starting to batter away at the walls here of Chirpus. And in retrospect, now this castle, this defensive castle, starting to look like a good option for him. Conscription and ballistics having been researched for Chirp now as well. But I do think underneath the under the influence here of the defender's advantage, he's going to be having his army cleaned up inside of inside of the walls here of his opponent. Now, what else can we see? Well, we can see the Eagle Warriors are now in. They're inside the base of Chirpus, and we can also see Scale Mail Armor now coming in for Chirp as well with Samurai. Like I said, Samurai coming out, going to provide a nice counter to the Eagle Warriors that are slowly, or that are being flooded into his opponent's economy here. And it sounds like they've done something interesting with the spec delay, because the next game has already started, but we'll stay in this one for the time being. It'll just have to be a quick changeover. Forging and Chain Mail Armor now coming in for Chirp as well. So he's got 2 monasteries up, and he's going for all of those double upgrades. And of course, these eagles are just going to get chewed up and just absolutely melted away by these samurai. And now that aggression from Goodstah has been cleaned up at the front of his base, or at his opponent's base, and the eagles are getting cleaned up on the left-hand side, the castle is now down. The troops from Chirp are going to start taking down the barracks, going to start taking down the town centres from Goodstah, and it's starting to look, yeah, there it is, starting to look pretty over and pretty GG for Goodstah. So like I said, the next game is really quickly starting, so I'll quickly change the score over to reflect it as 2-0 for Chirp. I'll Alt tab out of that game, switch over the scene to the correct overlay, which would be nice, and I'll see you guys very, very soon for game number 3.